Hey, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Now that we have categories set up well and they're running as intended, what we want is to limit what each user can see depending on who they are. So currently we have users here. Let me go to my users table. And in the users table, we have this row over here, which is what role a user is playing. Right now, only one record, and that record is a user. In actuality, should supposed to be the admin section here, admin user, because that's the first user, but we're going to fix that. So let me just close all files here for a second. Okay, so I'm going to explain how this is going to work. Try to summarize this. Now the thing is, we're going to have what we call permissions, right? So that we give permission to each user individually, what they can do, what they cannot do, etc., etc. Now, the problem is when a user logs in, it would be hectic if you have to select, because there can be hundreds of permissions, right? We're going to put a permission to everything. So these permissions are entirely up to you. You can put as many permissions as you want or as little as you want. So for example, you can put a permission that allows somebody to edit a category, but they cannot create a category, or they cannot delete a category, but they can edit it. So these are very fine-grained permissions, right? That's entirely up to you how far you want to go. Or you can just put one permission to do all that. As long as they're allowed to edit categories, then they can do all that. That's entirely up to you. So as a result, if a user just logs in and you have to go and start ticking what permissions they have, that would be a bit hectic. So instead, what we're going to do is the row here is going to represent a group of permissions. So let's say a user will have a defined set of permissions that they can do. Now those you're going to set on your own. You can always change them anytime, and then you can add a new row that you want and then give it the permissions that it can do. So this is going to give you fine-grained control over your entire website. No matter how huge that website gets, this system works pretty well. Anyway, it has worked for me quite well. So I actually copied this thing from, I think that's how WordPress works. I don't know how it works really, but that's what I saw from WordPress. With WordPress, you can't really tick fine-grained control of what I'm talking about here, but internally that's how it works, I think, because when I checked it, that's what I thought it does, and I got that idea and created a system of my own. Okay, so let's see how we can implement this. So first thing we have to do is let's go to somewhere inside the core, somewhere here. Now you can put this file anywhere. We're going to put a file that will give us permissions. Now an option is to put these permissions in the database. However, I do not think that's a good idea, because in case you delete your database, then that's a problem. These permissions are supposed to be hardwired into the application, so that if you want to add a new permission, you really need to edit the code. So you'll see what I mean in a minute. So what I'm going to do is I'll right click on the core and then I'll say new file. Let's just put a PHP tag there and let's save this one. So we're going to call it permissions.php. Now you can call it anything you want, it doesn't matter. Or you can add the permissions in the config file. That's up to you, but I wouldn't want to bother the user with adding permissions here. I would rather have a specialized file like this one. So what I'll do is I'll just write permissions like this and create a variable. Now I'll change this to capitalize it so that it looks serious. Convert case to uppercase like that. Looks like something important, right? And then I will do this, so that now we can add content. So this is just an array, an empty array. Let's just add things to this array. So that's entirely up to you what you want to add here. But let's say, for example, since we were dealing with categories, let's do a simple example and say categories, like at this. So here we'll create 3 permissions: add categories, duplicate this twice, and then we'll add another one called edit categories and another one called delete categories. That's not delete, is it? Okay, so great. This is nice. Now these are permissions we have so far that we can give a particular user. So let's leave that intact. But as usual, anything you add to the core folder should also be added to the init, otherwise it will never be included. We can add this just after the config, which is just fine. Even before, doesn't really matter, as long as it's somewhere before any of these functions. So permissions.php, there we go, and permissions, the array inside there. So now this array is available to us wherever we are on the application, which is fine. Now what I want to do is create a control system where I can well, let's see, where I can set what a particular actually, before we deal with databases, I want you to understand what's going on here. So instead, we'll just go to functions for now. We'll skip the database. We'll set that up a bit later. So what I would do is create a function here called user can. I'm just trying to see to make sure I haven't created it yet. Search, okay, nothing. So let's cut that. Let's go to the auth thingy here. Usually this is where I add that. Let's see, so it's not here at all. Okay, so we can add it here if we want. That's okay as well. So what I'll do is, it could be best maybe to add it here. Let me think. Okay, let's not complicate things. Let's add it to the functions. You can always move it into the class if you want. But for now, let's put it here. We'll just say function user can, and then let's do that. Okay. Now, this user can is a question. So this is going to return true or false. Okay. Let's always default to returning false so that we make sure we deny access if anything goes wrong. Then, like I said, here you can put a return value just to make sure you become strict with your PHP, because PHP is loosely typed. You can really do anything here. You don't need to specify that this is an integer, this is what, but you can if you want, to avoid errors that you may not foresee. Because at some point, if it returns something that isn't a true or a false, then it's going to throw an error, because here I specified that the return value here should be a boolean. That at least will tell me maybe where the problem is. And then here we're going to try to get a string from the user, and this one will determine the permission. So like this. What have I missed here? Okay, so that's permission. Hopefully this is the correct spelling for permission. So this one is a string permission. So if we get anything else like an array, then it's going to throw an error because we've specified that we want a string. You don't need to do this. Now, if you have different kinds of data expected, you can put mixed, but then there's no point in even putting that there. Okay, so this is what we have. If user can do something, then let's do this. So in this case, I want to know who the current user is and what they can do, right? So I want to know the role of the current user. So role is equal to, let's use the auth class in this case, and then just say get role right there so that we grab the role that the user is at. Okay. Now we need to know what permissions this role has. Now, since we don't have, we're going to be getting this information from the database. But since right now we don't have a database thingy, what I will do is say, what do we do here? We'll have an array. So let's put an array like this. I'm just going to call it, I don't know, rows. I hope this won't be confusing. and this one is user, right? Like this. So if the person is a user, like this, then there are permissions they are allowed. So we're going to look in that array. So here I'm going to give this user permission to just, let's see, edit a category. So this one has edit categories, and they can also add categories. Let's try that. So, but they can't delete. So a user can do that. And then we will have maybe admin here. Now, this information I'm putting here, don't mind too much. This is going to be coming from the database because we want you to be able to edit these items that are in here at any time. So that's why we'll put these in the database. So I'm going to say add categories, edit. So this one has 3 permissions, all of these, but the user, let's just make sure that maybe it's just the edit, right? Okay. And then when a person asks, can user do this? So we just say user can, and then we put a specific permission in here. So all we have to do is get that row, and as you can see, the row is inside rows here. Let's say the row we got from the current user is user. It means there's an array key called user, and then we check what permissions they have. If the permission we want is inside this array, then we return true. So in order to do this, we're going to say if in array, we're looking for a value in the array, like that. Okay, so the needle is what we are looking for. We are looking for a permission that was requested here. Now, it would be a good idea to send this permission to lowercase. So I'm just going to say string to lower, just to avoid confusion in typing like that. That way, all permissions are lowercase, whether we like it or not. And so even when adding permissions here, make sure you use only lowercase values. Now, you don't have to put the underscore here. It doesn't really matter. I just like it that way. I don't know why. Really, I don't know. Maybe let's remove that just for user readability when we go to the to adding these guys. So I'll just do that. Let's go back to, where are we? Functions. Yes. So let me remove these underscores here as well. Replace with a spacebar. Okay. So it's up to you. You want the underscores? Maybe for me, kind of looks more. It avoids mistakes, I think, because you might leave a space here eventually. Anyway, it's up to you. What you name these is really entirely up to you. So the needle is what we are looking for. So I'm looking for a particular permission. So I'll grab this and put that here. The haystack is where we are looking for the thing in. So here the haystack is this. This is the array, rows. But if I just try to find this, there are many items in here in this array. So I need to specify which particular array I should read from, and that will be determined by the user's row. So I'm just going to do this. That way, if the user is an admin, we're going to be searching in rows admin, which is this one, and we'll check if that permission is here. And if it is, then that user can do that thing. So let's do this and then say return like that, and then let's put true. So there we go. Simple function to give you powerful control over your permissions. Alrighty then. Okay, so let's say the user is just a normal user, and we'll say can user edit categories. We'll put edit categories there when calling this function, and then it will come down here, and then since it's a user, the row will return user. And then now all this should only be possible if we are logged in to start with. So if the current user is just a user, this will be user, and that's where we're going to read from this array and check if it's there, and then return true. But we should only care if we are logged in. So auth logged in. I don't know if it's just logged in or it's is logged in. I've made so many projects, I usually get lost what I use. That's why consistency is important. How you do things in one project maybe matters. I don't know. Okay, so if we are logged in, let's do that. If we are not, everything here will be skipped and we just return false. So this way, if you're not logged in, you're just not entitled to do anything on the website. Okay, great. So if you want, you can put some other if statements to accommodate people that are not logged in, but I don't think it's necessary, because if you want to give access to people who are not logged in, just don't use the user can, because this should be used for only those that are logged in. Right, so once we've done this, let's go now to our category system, right? And try to do things. Okay, so here I'm going to let's go back here. So refresh, right? And I want to be able to add a new category. Now keep in mind that I'm logged in as normal user. So if I click new category, I get this, no problem. But let's add some restriction. So I'm going to go to what's this, the view for this. In the admin, I'm going to go to the categories view. Let's go down here where we're adding. This is the action add, right? Now, instead of me just showing everything here, I still need to have the cancel button, but maybe not the save button, right? So cancel back. Okay, what we can do, what to do. So the action you take when somebody is restricted is up to you. You can put a message or you can redirect them to another page. That's entirely up to you. With a message, maybe, I don't know. But let's select the entire form. I think it's better to leave the title so that they know they're on the right page. But here we'll put a PHP tag and say if user can, like that. Okay, and then let's close that. Now user can do what exactly? This is the add, so it's add categories, like that. Okay. Oh yeah, actually the reason why I add underscores here is when I'm typing these things, the permissions, it's easy to forget what the permissions are. If you have an underscore, this is treated like one word. So if I start typing like add and then put underscore category, it will give me suggestions. But with a spacebar like this, these are treated like separate words, so that makes it a little bit harder. So instead, I think for that sake only, I'm going to add these back. Sorry about that. This is time wasting, but it's okay to add them like this. Let's go back here. Let me just undo, and there we go. Okay, so we are back in business. Let's come back to the view. So if we are allowed to add categories, so in this case, you see it will give me suggestions. Look at that. So easier to type these permissions that way. And then let me close it off at the end of the form right there. So let's do PHP and say end if, like that. But it's not just end if, let's put an else statement so that we can give them a message. And I'll put else, full colon. I'll just copy this alert right here for the delete and put it in there. And I'll say you don't have permission. You don't have permission. So you can put your own custom message. What you could do, because if you keep adding messages like this and then later on you want to change these messages, it may become a bit difficult. So maybe just put a function here that will alert you to a particular, I don't know, you can put a function that takes in what permission you've been denied, and then in the functions file you can set what message should be sent when that happens. But for simplicity, let's just leave it as you don't have permission to perform this action. Okay, great, exclamation point. Right, so let's try this now. Now if I refresh, okay, auth not found, class auth not found. Okay, so back to functions. Let's put a slash here to make sure it is found. Oh, wait, where's auth here? It's in the model space. That's probably why. So let's do that here as well. Copy and paste. Or instead you can just say use. That way you don't have to repeat yourself. But it's fine here. Let me refresh. Okay, so you don't have permission to perform this action. Great. Now let's come back to the same. I will need a back button, cancel. Copy that and put it here. Like this. There we go. Or back, maybe, would be better. Alright, refresh. Okay, so back. So now I cannot edit this. Oh, I can edit, but I can't add a new one. See that? So as a user, I can't add a new category, but I can edit one. Let's do the delete as well. Are you sure? But before we get to this, let's do the user can as well. So copy that. Let's go to the delete. So right here before the question, let's paste that. So that's delete. Okay, so if user can delete, that's fine. But if not, let's put this else statement here. So right after the, right there, let's push that inward and line that up like so. Okay, great. So this is in the delete. Let's see that. So let me refresh. You don't have permission to perform this action. Great. But let's click on edit, right? I do have permission to edit, but let's still add the restriction because it should be there as well, just in case somebody does not have permission. So right on the form, I will paste the other data and move things a bit like this. Okay. And then bring the actual if statement. Where is that? This one. If user can, let's bring that here. Right after the form. Cool. Let me move everything inward. Okay, great. Much better. So instead of delete, this one is edit. Are we allowed to edit like this? Okay, so if I refresh, you see it still allows me to edit. If I cancel and come back to edit, I am allowed to edit. If I try to delete, I'm not allowed. If I try to do this, I am not allowed either to add, just like that. So now if I want to edit the permission for a user, I can just add there. So let's try and add the permission to delete. Actually, admin doesn't have a delete either. So let's do delete like that. So I'm just going to add a delete permission here. So now a user can delete also. So let's go back and click on delete. See, now I'm allowed to delete as intended. But I still cannot add because that's not part of the permission. But if I add it here, let me copy this and add it there. So now I'm allowed to do everything that an admin can do. So if I click on add, now I'm allowed to add. Now, people are clever because if you click on, let's say somebody is not allowed, and if you click on new, this is the URL to the add session, right? So if I create a form myself using Ajax, okay, I can simulate a post request using Ajax. And then instead of refreshing my page, I can send that form to this particular URL. And then if this is really on your website, then somebody can add new categories without your consent because we're not checking to see when we're adding a category if they are allowed to even do that. So what to do in this case is this. In case they bypass things for some reason, they shouldn't still be allowed when we submit. So let's go to the actual submission. Let's go to, where is the submission place? This is in, it's in the admin section. And where is that? So admin, and these are courses. Let's go to categories quickly. Where is this? Categories right there. So we actually don't need any of this. Interesting. Maybe the user ID. We don't need to see any course. So yeah, none of this is even useful at all. So let me remove that. This was from the previous copy of things that we did. But wait, we need the categories. This one right here. That's the only thing we need. The rest are not. Oops. What did I do? Oh boy. There we go. There we go. Where are we? Oh no, I'm lost now. What have I done? Okay, there we go. Categories. And then let's remove price, currency, level. Just this one is needed. Okay, so when we're adding here, and then somebody posts something, and then there's a validation process, all of this. Now we should add the user can here, okay? So we have errors here if we want. You can actually add an error if you want, or you can just ignore it if it's not something you want to do. So here you can just put if user can, like this, and then you put and like that. Or if you want, you can put a separate if statement so that you can add an error if they are not allowed to perform that action. So let's see how that can work. Let's see here. This is add categories, right? Like that. Okay, so if user can add categories and that, but if you want this to be separate, you can do this and instead put another if statement. So I'm going to do this and put user can in here. So if user can do this, and then let's move everything over. Let me put an opening bracket and closing bracket here. This way at least we can put an else statement and then add to errors. We can just add to it and say category errors, and then let's give it a name, like for example category here, and then put a message and say you are not allowed to perform this action, like so. Okay, so with this in mind, let's try this. Now for this to work, I'm going to go to the categories, and in the add section, where is this? I'm going to allow this by doing or true, like that, because true is always true, so it will always pass here regardless of the other thing. So let's see somebody who is denied the function to add category. So I'm going to remove this add, so we don't have that permission anymore, even though we're going to see the page itself. Oh, wait a minute. So if I click add, okay, so it's telling me I don't have permission, which I don't, but let's go to the categories here. If user, oh, this is for the delete, so sorry, wrong place. I'm supposed to go to the add, which is right there, and put that there. So that will enable me to bypass it. Okay, so once I do this and I type something, even before I type this, if I click save, it just tells me you're not allowed to perform this action. So regardless what I do here, I cannot save if for some reason I manage to bypass this, right? So it's always good to put double security there. But for a layman, they won't even see this form at all because they'll have that, which is good, because if they refresh, they'll get this instead, right? But if they are clever, try to bypass the system, then they're going to get that error over there. So this is a basic idea of how we're going to restrict everything from now on, even the menu buttons here, everything else. So we're just going to implement this to everything, and it's going to work.